The neon-drenched skyline of Nefra Station stretched endlessly before Alex Rourke as he stood on the observation deck of the Xenolinguistics Department. The artificial sunset painted the gas giant's rings in shades of rose and indigo, a daily spectacle that never failed to remind him how far humanity had come from Earth. Here, on this sprawling interstellar university city, dozens of alien species mingled in the corridors, their diverse forms creating a tapestry of life that would have been unimaginable just centuries ago. Alex pressed his palm against the transparent aluminum window, watching as gravity-defying transport pods whisked students between the station's various sectors. Below, the floating night markets were beginning to illuminate, their bioluminescent displays promising exotic delicacies from 100 different worlds. The familiar ache of loneliness settled in his chest, a constant companion despite being surrounded by millions of beings. "Still brooding about your thesis?" Mira Tanaka's voice cut through his reverie. His best friend and fellow graduate student appeared beside him, her practical jumpsuit a stark contrast to the elaborate robes worn by many of the alien students passing by. "Not brooding," Alex corrected, turning to face her with his trademark sardonic smile. "Contemplating the existential void that is my academic career." Mira rolled her eyes, a gesture she'd perfected over their 3 years of friendship. "Your presentation on Zephyrian conditional verb structures was brilliant. Dr. Voss said so himself. Dr. Voss says everything is brilliant when it doesn't actively set the lab on fire." Alex countered, though he appreciated her attempt at encouragement. Dr. Tarek Voss, their alien mentor, was indeed generous with praise, but that only made Alex more aware of his own shortcomings. In a universe where some species could communicate through color changes or pheromone emissions, human linguistics felt almost primitive. "Come on," Mira said, grabbing his arm. "The Convergence Festival is starting. You need to get out of your head for once." The Convergence Festival was Nefra Station's annual celebration of interspecies unity, a week-long event that transformed the Central Plaza into a riot of color, sound, and sensation. As they descended through the station's levels, the crowds grew thicker, a river of humanity and alien life flowing toward the festivities. Alex found himself swept along, past stalls selling Andromedan crystal music that could only be heard through touch, past demonstrations of Cetian light weaving, past food vendors whose offerings ranged from familiar earth dishes to substances Alex wasn't entirely sure were edible for human physiology. The air thrummed with a dozen different musical traditions, creating a cacophony that somehow worked. "Look," Mira pointed to a gathering crowd near the main stage. "It's that holocam streamer, Cosmo Craze. He's doing live challenges." Cosmo Craze was a Thraxian influencer whose 6 arms allowed him to operate multiple recording devices simultaneously. His channel was famous for getting beings to do outrageous things for viral fame. As they approached, Alex could hear him calling out challenges to the crowd, his translator rendering his clicks and whistles into enthusiastic standard. "Next challenge," Cosmo Craze announced, his compound eyes glittering with mischief. "I need someone brave enough to make a public marriage proposal to a complete stranger. 1,000 credits to anyone willing to shout it to the entire plaza." The crowd laughed and murmured, but no one stepped forward. Alex snorted. 1,000 credits to humiliate yourself? The economy really is in decline. Mira's eyes lit up with a dangerous gleam that Alex had learned to fear. "You should do it." "Absolutely not." "Come on, Alex. When was the last time you did something spontaneous, something that wasn't calculated and analyzed to death?" "I prefer my humiliations private. Thank you. It's just a joke. Everyone knows it's for the challenge. Plus," she added with a sly smile, 1,000 credits would cover your lab fees for the semester." Alex wanted to argue, but the truth was that his financial situation was precarious. His family back on Earth couldn't understand why he'd chosen xenolinguistics over something practical like interstellar commerce or colonial administration. Their monthly stipend barely covered his basic needs. and the lab fees for his advanced studies were a constant source of stress. "This is a terrible idea," he muttered, but he was already pushing through the crowd. Cosmo Craze's excitement was palpable as Alex climbed onto the small platform. "We have a brave soul. What's your name?" "Human." "Alex Rourke, and I'm already regretting this." The crowd laughed, and Cosmo Craz handed him a voice amplifier. "Remember, you have to make it sound genuine. Put your heart into it." Alex took a deep breath, trying to channel every dramatic performance he'd ever seen. The amplifier hummed to life in his hand, and suddenly his voice boomed across the plaza, echoing off the station's curved walls. "Is there anyone who wants to marry me?" he shouted, injecting what he hoped was the right amount of desperate passion into his voice. "I'm a struggling graduate student with crippling debt and commitment issues, but I make excellent coffee, and I've been told my sarcasm is charming in small doses." The crowd erupted in laughter and applause. Alex grinned, already planning how to spend the credits, when he noticed something strange. A hush was falling over the plaza, starting from the far edge and rippling inward like a wave. Then he heard it. A slow, deliberate clap that somehow cut through the ambient noise. The crowd began to part, creating a corridor of empty space. And through it walked a figure that made Alex's breath catch. She was tall, taller than most humans, with skin so pale it seemed to glow with its own inner light. Her robes were midnight black, decorated with silver threads that formed patterns Alex couldn't quite focus on, as if they shifted when he wasn't looking directly at them. But it was her eyes that held him, crimson red, like ancient stars, with depths that suggested centuries of existence. "I accept your proposal," she said, her voice carrying despite speaking barely above a whisper. The translator rendered her words into standard, but there was something else there. An underlying harmony that bypassed language entirely. "If you still agree when you know me." The silence in the plaza was absolute. Even Cosmo Craze seemed stunned, his 6 arms frozen mid-gesture. Alex's mind raced, trying to process what was happening. He recognized the aesthetic, the pale skin, the crimson eyes, the otherworldly beauty. This was one of the Nocturans, the so-called vampire species that had arrived at the station under mysterious circumstances just months ago. Rumors about them had spread like wildfire through the university. They were said to be immortal, or close to it. They supposedly fed on life energy itself, though no one knew exactly what that meant. Some claimed they were refugees from a dying world. Others whispered that they were scouts for an invasion. The one thing everyone agreed on was that they kept to themselves, rarely interacting with other species. And now, one was standing before him, having just accepted his joke proposal with what appeared to be complete seriousness. Alex's voice cracked, and he cleared his throat. "I'm sorry. I think there's been a misunderstanding. This was just—" "A jest?" the Nocturan woman interrupted, a smile playing at the corners of her mouth. "I'm aware. However, among my people, even words spoken in jest carry weight. You called out to the universe, and the universe has answered. The question now is whether you have the courage to explore where this path might lead." She stepped closer, and Alex caught a scent like midnight blooming flowers in ancient libraries. "I am Lady Seraphine of House Stellaris, last of the Nocturan nobility. And you, Alex Rourke, have just proposed to me in front of several thousand witnesses." The crowd seemed to collectively hold its breath. Alex was acutely aware that every recording device in the plaza was focused on them, that this moment would be broadcast across the station's networks within minutes. He could refuse, laugh it off, retreat into the safety of his ordinary life. But as he looked into those crimson eyes, he felt something shift inside him. When was the last time anything truly unexpected had happened to him? When had he last felt this alive, this present in the moment? "Well then, Lady Seraphine," he said, surprised by the steadiness of his own voice. I suppose we should talk. Her smile widened, revealing teeth that were just slightly too sharp to be human. Indeed we should. Shall we? She extended a hand, pale, elegant, with nails like polished obsidian. After a moment's hesitation, Alex took it. Her skin was cool to the touch, but not unpleasantly so. As their fingers intertwined, he felt a subtle pulse of something that wasn't quite electricity, wasn't quite warmth, but was definitely real. The crowd erupted in chaos, cheers, gasps, shouted questions. Cosmo Craze was practically vibrating with excitement, already composing what would undoubtedly be his most viral post ever. But Alex barely noticed any of it. His attention was entirely focused on the woman whose hand he held, who was now leading him away from the platform with serene confidence. "Wait!" Mira's voice cut through the noise. She pushed through the crowd, her face a mixture of shock and concern. "Alex, what are you doing?" He paused, turning back to his friend. "I honestly have no idea," he admitted, "but I think I want to find out." Mira's expression cycled through several emotions before settling on resignation mixed with worry. "Just be careful, okay?" "When am I not careful? Do you want the chronological list or the highlighted disasters?" "Despite everything." Alex laughed. "Fair point. I'll send you a message later." As he turned to follow Seraphine, he caught a glimpse of other faces in the crowd. Some were excited, others fearful. A group of humans near the back looked positively hostile, and he filed that away as something to worry about later. Right now, he was apparently having his first conversation with his joke fiancée. Seraphine led him away from the main plaza, through winding corridors that grew progressively quieter. The festival noise faded to a distant hum, replaced by the station's ambient sounds. The whisper of recycled air, the subtle hum of gravity generators, the occasional ping of automated systems. "You're remarkably calm for someone who just became engaged to an alien vampire," Seraphine observed, not breaking stride. "I'm experiencing what my therapist would call acute dissociation from reality," Alex replied. "I'm sure the panic will set in shortly." She laughed, a sound like silver bells in a gentle breeze. "How refreshingly honest. Most beings try to pretend bravery in my presence. Trust me, if I was trying to impress you, I wouldn't have led with my crippling debt and commitment issues." "On the contrary," she said, finally stopping in front of an ornate door marked with symbols Alex didn't recognize. "Your self-deprecating honesty was what caught my attention. That and the genuine loneliness beneath the humor." Alex felt exposed, as if she'd peered directly into his soul. "That's unnervingly perceptive. I've had centuries to learn to read people." "Alex Rourke." She pressed her palm against the door's biometric scanner, and it slid open silently. "Welcome to my sanctuary." The space beyond the door took Alex's breath away. It was a conservatory, but unlike any he'd seen on the station, the transparent dome overhead showed not the standard view of space, but a projection of an alien night sky, with constellations he didn't recognize dancing slowly across the darkness. The room itself was filled with plants that seemed to exist at the edge of perception, flowers that bloomed in shades of darkness, trees with leaves that whispered secrets in long-dead languages. "This is incredible," Alex breathed, stepping inside. The air was different here, charged with something that made his skin tingle. "A piece of Noctura," Seraphine said, and for the first time, he heard sadness in her voice. "All that remains of our homeworld's gardens. We saved what we could when the sun began to die." "I'm sorry," Alex said, meaning it. "I can't imagine losing an entire world." "Can't you?" She moved to tend to one of the shadow flowers, her fingers gentle on its petals. "Every human who comes to the stars leaves Earth behind. You may still communicate, may even visit, but the world you knew, the person you were there, that's gone forever. We're all refugees from our past selves. The philosophical weight of her words settled over Alex. He approached one of the plants cautiously, a tree whose bark seemed to shift between solid and liquid states. "May I?" "Of course, but be gentle. It responds to emotional states." As his fingers touched the bark, it rippled like water, and suddenly Alex was overwhelmed with sensation. Not his own emotions, but echoes of others: joy, sorrow, love, loss, all filtered through an alien perspective that was beautiful and terrifying in equal measure. He jerked his hand back, gasping. "What was that?" "The memoriam tree," Seraphine explained, watching him with those ancient eyes. "It stores emotional imprints. That particular one holds the feelings of 10,000 nocturnes across a millennium. It's our way of preserving not just history, but the experience of history. That's actually fascinating from a linguistic perspective," Alex said, his academic mind engaging despite the circumstances. "Emotional communication that transcends verbal language. Dr. Voss would lose his mind over this." "Dr. Tariq Voss, the Zephyrian linguist. You know him?" "By reputation. His work on universal communication matrices is legendary among my people. We've long believed that true understanding between species requires more than words." Alex found himself relaxing slightly. This was familiar territory: academic discussion, theoretical frameworks. His latest theory suggests that all sentient beings share certain fundamental communication patterns, like a universal grammar, but for consciousness itself. "And what do you think?" Seraphine asked, genuinely curious. "I think," Alex paused, considering. "I think he might be right, but not in the way he imagines. It's not about finding one universal pattern, but about recognizing the beauty in the differences. Like your memoriam tree, a human could never naturally communicate that way, but we can still appreciate and learn from it." Seraphine smiled, and this time it reached her eyes. "You're not what I expected from a human academic. Devastatingly handsome and irresistibly charming." "Genuine," she corrected. "Most of your species who study xenolinguistics do so to find ways to make aliens more human. You seem interested in understanding us as we are." "Well, I'm apparently engaged to you now," Alex said, the absurdity of the situation hitting him anew. "I should probably try to understand what I've gotten myself into." "About that," Seraphine said, gesturing to a seating area that seemed grown rather than built, all curves and organic lines. "We should discuss what this means, for both of us." They sat, and Alex was surprised to find the furniture perfectly comfortable despite its alien design. Seraphine poured something from a crystalline decanter. The liquid was dark as night, but seemed to contain swirling galaxies. "Nocturne wine," she explained, offering him a glass. "Don't worry. It's safe for human consumption. Mostly." That's reassuring. But Alex took the glass anyway, figuring he was already in too deep to worry about alien beverages. The taste was indescribable, like drinking starlight, with notes of flowers that bloomed in absolute darkness. "So," he said, setting down the glass before he got too comfortable with alien alcohol, "why did you accept my proposal? The real reason." Seraphine was quiet for a long moment, staring into her own glass. "Do you know why we came to Nephra Station?" "The rumors say your world was dying." "Our sun," she confirmed. "It began to consume itself 300 years ago. We held it back with technology, with sacrifice. But eventually, even we had to accept defeat. The last chips left just 50 years ago. How many survived? Less than 1,000, scattered across various stations and colonies. I am the last of House Stellaris, the final keeper of our most sacred traditions." She looked at him directly. "Including the tradition of the blood bond." "That sounds ominous." "It's not what your horror stories would suggest," she said with a wry smile. "We don't drain our partners dry or turn them into thralls. The blood bond is about connection, sharing life force, memories, understanding. It's the deepest form of intimacy our species knows. And you want that with me? A random human who shouted a joke proposal at a festival? I want, Seraphine said carefully, to not be alone anymore. I've lived for 800 years. Alex, I've watched my world die, my people scatter, my house fall to nothing. When you called out into that crowd, I heard something in your voice that resonated with my own loneliness. Alex felt his throat tighten. That's a lot of expectation to put on a joke. I'm not expecting love at first sight or eternal devotion, she assured him. I'm asking if you're willing to explore the possibility of connection, to see if two lost souls might find something meaningful together, even if it started as an accident. What would that involve, exactly? Getting to know each other, sharing meals, conversations, experiences, learning about each other's cultures and perspectives. If we find genuine compatibility, we can discuss deeper bonds. If not, we part as friends and blame it on the folly of festival atmosphere. That's actually very reasonable. Were you expecting me to demand your blood immediately? The thought had crossed my mind, Alex admitted. We do feed on life energy, Seraphine said, addressing the unspoken question. But it's not the violent predation your films depict. It's more like sharing warmth on a cold night. Both participants benefit when it's done correctly. And when it's not done correctly, then it's a violation of the highest order, punishable by exile or death among our people. Her expression hardened. I would never take without consent. Alex, that's not who I am. He believed her. Despite the strangeness of the situation, despite having known her for less than an hour, he believed her. Okay, let's try this. Get to know each other. See where it goes. But I have conditions. Name them. First, we're honest with each other. No games, no manipulation. If something makes either of us uncomfortable, we say so. Agreed. Second, we take things slow. I'm still processing the fact that alien vampires are real, let alone that I'm sort of engaged to one. Also agreed. Third, you teach me about these plants. They're genuinely fascinating. Seraphine laughed, surprised. That's your third condition? I'm a xenolinguist. Understanding alien forms of communication is literally my job. These plants seem to communicate through stored emotions. That's revolutionary. Most humans who learn about our gardens are terrified of them. Most humans are terrified of anything they don't understand. I prefer to be curious. Then I'll teach you, she promised. Though I warn you, some of the deeper plant connections can be overwhelming for non-nocturans. I'll take my chances. They spent the next few hours in the conservatory, with Seraphine introducing him to various specimens. Each plant had its own method of non-verbal communication, some through scent, others through subtle psychic impressions, a few through methods Alex couldn't quite categorize. It was like discovering an entirely new linguistic system, one that operated on principles he'd never imagined. This is the whisper vine, Seraphine explained, guiding his hand to a delicate tendril. It carries messages between plants, creating a network of shared information. On Noctura, entire forests would be connected through these vines. As Alex touched the vine, he felt a flutter of something, like catching the edge of a conversation in a language he didn't speak but somehow almost understood. It's trying to tell me something. It's welcoming you, Seraphine translated. The plants can sense intent, and they know you mean no harm. What about that one? Alex pointed to a flower that seemed to exist in multiple dimensions simultaneously, its petals here and not here at the same time. Ah, the phase bloom. Even we don't fully understand it. It exists partially in our reality and partially elsewhere. Some theorize it's how our ancestors first made contact with entities from other dimensions. Other dimensions? As in parallel universes. As in layers of reality that exist alongside our own. But that's a conversation for another time. It requires significant context about Nocturan metaphysics. I'm going to hold you to that, Alex said, making a mental note. This is exactly the kind of thing that could revolutionize our understanding of communication. You're taking all of this remarkably well, Seraphine observed. Most beings require significant adjustment time when exposed to Nocturan concepts. I've spent 3 years studying how different species conceptualize reality through language. Last month, I had to learn a language that exists only as temperature variations. Emotion-storing plants and dimensional flowers are weird, but manageable weird. And alien vampires? Still processing that one, Alex admitted. But you're less creature of the night and more sophisticated lady with an unusual diet than I expected. Cultural stereotypes rarely capture truth, she agreed. Though we do have excellent night vision and a problematic relationship with UV radiation. Hence the nocturnal gardens. Among other adaptations, Noctura had 3 moons but no significant sun. Our entire evolution was shaped by darkness and reflected light. A soft chime interrupted their conversation. Seraphine checked a device on her wrist. Frowning. It seems news of our engagement has spread rather quickly. Bad news? Mixed. Several academic colleagues are requesting meetings, your Dr. Voss among them. Actually, he's quite eager to discuss the linguistic implications of human-nocturan pair bonding. That sounds like him. Alex groaned. He's probably already planning a research paper. There are also several messages from what appear to be protesters. Something called the Crimson Guard is denouncing our unholy alliance. The Crimson Guard? A human supremacist group. From what I can gather, they seem to believe that humanity should remain genetically and culturally isolated from other species. Charming. Every species has its idiots, I suppose. Indeed. My own people have those who believe we should never have left Noctura. That dying with our world would have been more honorable than survival. She paused. There's also a rather frantic series of messages from someone named Mira Tanaka, my best friend. She's probably worried I've been mind-controlled or something. Have you been? Would I know if I had? Fair point. Though for the record, Nocturan influence requires either willing participation or extreme weakness of will. You seem to possess neither quality in excess. I'll take that as a compliment. I think Alex pulled out his own communication device, seeing dozens of notifications. I should probably respond to some of these before Mira organizes a rescue mission. Of course. Shall we meet again tomorrow? I could give you a more comprehensive tour of the conservatory, perhaps introduce you to some of the more advanced specimens. I'd like that, Alex said, surprised to find he meant it. Same time. I'm largely nocturnal, but I can adjust. Would evening work better for your schedule? Evening's perfect. I have classes during the day anyway. As they walked back to the entrance, Alex found himself reluctant to leave. The conservatory felt like a pocket universe, separate from the chaos and complications of the outside world. But reality was waiting, and he had a lot of explaining to do. Before you go, Seraphine said, pausing at the door, I want you to understand that you're under no obligation to continue this. If tomorrow you decide this was all festival madness, I'll understand. No hard feelings, as you humans say. And if I don't, then we take another step forward, wherever that leads us. She smiled, and this time it was tinged with vulnerability. I haven't had hope in a very long time. Alex Rourke. It's a fragile thing, and I'm trusting you with it. I'll try to be worthy of that trust, he said, meaning it more than he'd meant anything in recent memory. As he walked back through the station corridors, Alex's mind raced with everything that had happened. In the span of a few hours, his life had taken a turn so dramatic it felt like fiction. He was sort of engaged to an alien vampire. He'd discovered a form of botanical communication that could revolutionize xenolinguistics. He'd found someone who understood loneliness the way he did. His communication device buzzed constantly with messages, but he ignored most of them. There would be time for explanations later. Right now, he just wanted to process the feeling bubbling up in his chest, something he hadn't felt in so long he'd almost forgotten its name. Hope. By the time he reached his quarters, the station's information networks were in full meltdown. His door's security panel showed 17 visitors had attempted entry in his absence, mostly journalists and curiosity seekers. He slipped in through a maintenance corridor, grateful for the boring predictability of his habits that meant few people knew about his alternate routes. Inside, Mira was waiting. How did you... Spare key, remember? She stood up from his desk chair, arms crossed. Are you insane? Possibly. Jury's still out. Alex, this is serious. The entire station is talking about you and that woman. Do you have any idea what you've gotten yourself into? A fascinating xenolinguistic opportunity? A political nightmare. The Crimson Guard is already calling for her deportation. They're saying she used mind control to manipulate you. She didn't, Alex said firmly. I made my own choice. To marry someone you just met. To get to know someone interesting. The marriage thing was a joke that got out of hand. Mira studied him with the intense focus that made her such a good researcher. You like her. I just met her. That's not a denial. Alex slumped onto his couch, suddenly exhausted. She's not what I expected. She's brilliant, Mira, and sad. And she has this garden full of plants that store emotions and communicate through psychic networks. Do you have any idea what that could mean for our field? I have an idea what it could mean for you, Mira said, sitting beside him. The Nocturans aren't just any alien species, Alex. They're predators. They feed on life energy. What if she's just looking for a convenient food source? Then she's going about it in a very elaborate way. She could have just grabbed someone in a dark corridor if she wanted a snack. This isn't funny. I'm not laughing. He turned to face his friend. Look, I know it's crazy. I know it's risky. But when was the last time I took any kind of chance? When was the last time something made me feel alive? Mira's expression softened. Not since Kepler Station. Alex flinched. Kepler Station had been his first posting after graduation, a linguistic exchange program that had ended in disaster when his partner, professional and romantic, had decided that career advancement on the core worlds was more important than their relationship. He'd thrown himself into his studies since then, avoiding anything that might lead to similar hurt. This is different, he said quietly. Because she's an alien vampire who accepted your joke proposal? Because she's honest about being broken too. They sat in silence for a moment. Finally, Mira sighed. What do you need from me? Just be my friend. Don't let me do anything too stupid. That's a full-time job with you. I'll buy you coffee for a month. Make it 2 months and throw in those Andromedan pastries from the South Market. Deal. Mira stood to leave, then paused at the door. For what it's worth, I watched the footage from the festival. The way she looked at you. It didn't seem predatory. It seemed like recognition. Recognition of what? A kindred spirit. Maybe. Just be careful. Alex, I don't want to see you hurt again. After she left, Alex spent the rest of the night fielding messages and trying to make sense of his new reality. Dr. Voss's enthusiasm was predictable but exhausting. The Zephyrian wanted to document every aspect of human-Nocturan interaction for his research. His parents' confusion and concern from Earth was harder to handle, especially given the communication delay that meant his responses wouldn't reach them for hours. But it was the message from Seraphine that he read most carefully. Thank you for tonight. I haven't shared the conservatory with anyone outside my people before. Your genuine interest in our botanical heritage was unexpected and appreciated. If you decide to continue our acquaintance, I would be honored to share more of our culture with you. If not, I'm grateful for these few hours of connection. Sleep well. Alex Rourke. He started to type a dozen different responses, deleted them all, and finally settled on simple honesty. Thank you for trusting me with your sanctuary. I'll see you tomorrow evening. Looking forward to learning more about the dimensional flowers. Sleep well. Seraphine. As he prepared for bed, Alex caught his reflection in the mirror. He looked the same as he had that morning, average height, brown hair that never quite cooperated, eyes that his mother called pensively green. But something was different. There was a spark there that had been missing for too long. Tomorrow would bring complications, the Crimson Guard, academic scrutiny, social media chaos, and whatever challenges came with dating. Was it dating? An alien vampire. But tonight, for the first time in years, Alex Rourke fell asleep with a smile on his face. The next few days passed in a blur of classes, research, and evening visits to Seraphine's conservatory. Each night revealed new wonders, plants that painted stories in pollen, flowers that sang in frequencies only nocturnes could hear, trees that could share memories across generations. Alex filled notebook after notebook with observations, his excitement growing with each discovery. You're the first non-nocturne to show such aptitude for botanical empathy, Seraphine told him on their fourth evening together. They were sitting beside a pool where luminescent water lilies created constellations on the surface. Most beings find the emotional resonance overwhelming. It was at first, Alex admitted, trailing his fingers through the water. The lilies responded by shifting their pattern, creating new star formations. But it's like learning any new language. Once you understand the basic grammar, the rest starts to make sense. Is that how you see it, as a language? Everything is language, in a way. The lilies communicate through light patterns, the memoriam trees through emotional imprints. Even the way you move, there's a vocabulary to it, probably developed over centuries of cultural evolution. Seraphine smiled. And what does my movement vocabulary tell you? That you're comfortable here in a way you aren't anywhere else on the station. Your gestures are more fluid, less guarded. In public, you maintain perfect posture, a defense mechanism. I think here you actually relax. You're very observant. Occupational hazard. Also, I may have been watching you more than strictly necessary for linguistic analysis. Oh? She turned to face him fully, and Alex was struck again by her otherworldly beauty. In the garden's bioluminescent glow, she seemed to shimmer, as if not quite solid. You're fascinating, he said simply. And not just because you're a vampire from another world. The way you think, the connections you make between concepts that seem unrelated to human minds, it's like watching poetry in motion. Careful. Alex Rourke. That almost sounded romantic. Would that be bad? That depends, she said, moving closer. Are you interested in me, or in the xenolinguistic opportunity I represent? Can't it be both? An honest answer. I appreciate that. They were close enough now that he could see the subtle patterns in her crimson irises, like frozen flames. What about you? Am I just a convenient solution to loneliness? Initially, perhaps, but you've surprised me. Your mind works in ways I didn't expect. When you touched the phase bloom yesterday and immediately theorized about using dimensional overlap for faster-than-light communication, that was brilliant. That was caffeine-fueled rambling. That was intuitive genius. My people studied those flowers for millennia without making that connection. Maybe it took an outsider's perspective. Maybe it took the right outsider. The moment stretched between them, charged with possibility. Alex was acutely aware of every detail, the soft sound of water, the whisper of alien plants, the way Seraphine's eyes seemed to hold galaxies. I should probably mention, he said, that I have no idea how nocturne courtship works. It's not so different from human customs in principle. We share experiences, build trust, explore compatibility. The main difference is the eventual sharing of life force. About that, how does it work exactly, the feeding thing? Seraphine considered her words carefully. Every living being generates life energy, what some cultures call chi or prana. Nocturnes evolved to be able to access and share this energy. In its crudest form, yes, it can be predatory, but in its highest form, it's symbiotic. Symbiotic how? When done correctly, both participants benefit. The nocturne receives sustenance, but the partner receives something in return: enhanced vitality, shared sensory experiences, even extended lifespan in some cases. Extended lifespan? My people are not truly immortal, despite the legends. We age, just very slowly. A human partnered with a nocturne through a proper blood bond could expect to live 2 or 3 times the normal span. That's a lot to process. We're nowhere near that stage, Seraphine assured him. I'm simply being transparent about what a full relationship with my kind entails. You deserve to know what you might be choosing. I appreciate that, though I should point out that we're having this conversation after knowing each other for less than a week. Time moves differently when you've lived for centuries. I've learned to recognize potential quickly. And you see potential here. I see, she said carefully. Someone whose loneliness resonates with mine. Someone brilliant enough to appreciate what I offer and brave enough not to fear it. Someone who looks at my heritage with wonder rather than horror. You forgot, makes excellent coffee. That too, she laughed, though I have yet to experience this allegedly excellent coffee. Tomorrow morning, I could bring some to the conservatory before my classes. I would enjoy that, though I should warn you, nocturne taste buds are quite sensitive. What you consider excellent might be overwhelming to me. Then we'll find the right blend. Consider it a xenolinguistic experiment. Everything is xenolinguistics with you, isn't it? Says the woman whose entire garden is a living communication network. They continued talking as the artificial night deepened around them. Alex learned about nocturne history, about the great houses that had ruled their world, about the slow death of their sun that had driven them to the stars. In return, he shared his own story, his struggle to find purpose, his failed relationship at Kepler Station, his family's disapproval of his career choice. They wanted me to go into colonial administration, he explained. Steady work, good pay, respectable position. They couldn't understand why I choose to study how aliens construct meaning. And why did you? Because understanding each other is the only hope we have. Humans spent thousands of years killing each other over differences in language and culture. Now we're part of a galactic community with beings so different we can barely comprehend them. If we don't learn to truly communicate, to understand each other at a fundamental level, we're doomed to repeat our mistakes on a cosmic scale. That's quite idealistic. Maybe. But someone has to be. The cynics and pragmatists build walls. Idealists build bridges. And which are we building? Alex Rourke. He looked at her, really looked at her. In the space of a few days, she'd gone from terrifying alien vampire to, what, friend? Potential partner? Something else entirely. I think, he said slowly, we're building something new. Something neither human nor nocturne, but uniquely ours. I like that thought, she said softly. Their hands found each other almost naturally, fingers intertwining. Her touch was still cool, but he was growing used to it, even finding it comforting. Through the contact, he felt a whisper of that energy she'd talked about, not feeding, just presence. It was like standing next to a star, feeling its light without being burned. A sharp chime from both their devices shattered the moment. Seraphine checked hers first, her expression darkening. What is it? The Crimson Guard. They've filed a formal petition with the station council to have me deported as a threat to human genetic purity. They can't be serious. They have 17,000 signatures. Alex felt anger rise in his chest. 17,000 idiots who've never even talked to you. They fear what they don't understand. It's not uniquely human. My own people have similar prejudices. That doesn't make it right. No, but it makes it predictable. I've dealt with such things before. Not alone, Alex said firmly. Not this time. She looked at him with surprise. You'd stand with me against your own species. I'd stand with you against ignorance. Species has nothing to do with it. You realize this will make things difficult for you. The Crimson Guard doesn't just target aliens. They go after sympathizers too. Let them try. I've been called worse things than a sympathizer. Alex, no, he interrupted. I'm tired of people thinking they can dictate who we associate with, who we care about. You're not a threat to anyone. You're a refugee who lost her entire world and is just trying to build a new life. They can't see that. It's their blindness, not your fault. Seraphine was quiet for a long moment, then squeezed his hand. Thank you. For what? For seeing me as a person rather than a monster. You're many things. Seraphine of House Stellaris. A monster isn't one of them. They stayed in the conservatory until the station's artificial dawn began to lighten the corridors outside. As Alex prepared to leave for his morning classes, Seraphine walked him to the door. The council hearing is in 3 days, she said. You don't have to attend. Try to stop me. Alex, partners, remember? Whatever we're building, we build it together. She kissed him then, so quickly he barely registered it before it was over. Her lips were cool like her touch, but there was warmth in the gesture that transcended temperature. Thank you, she whispered, and then she was gone. Retreating into the shadows of her sanctuary, Alex stood in the corridor for a full minute, fingers pressed to his lips, trying to process what had just happened. His first kiss with an alien, his first kiss with a vampire, his first kiss with Seraphine. He was definitely in trouble. The news of the Crimson Guard's petition spread through the station like wildfire. By the time Alex reached his first class, everyone knew. Some students stared at him with curiosity, others with disgust. A few offered quiet support, but most seemed unsure how to react to their classmates' sudden notoriety. Dr. Voss, naturally, was thrilled. A formal hearing, what an opportunity! The Zephyrian's forearms gestured excitedly as he pulled Alex aside after class. The linguistic implications of the council's deliberation alone could fill a dissertation. Doctor, they're trying to deport my... Yes, unfortunate. But think of the data. First formal challenge to a human nocturne pairing, the language they use, the arguments they make. It's a xenolinguist's dream. It's a nightmare, Alex corrected. They're using fear and prejudice to target someone who's done nothing wrong. Dr. Voss's enthusiasm dimmed slightly. Ah, yes. The personal element. I sometimes forget that for humans. Emotional attachment complicates academic observation. It's not just emotional attachment, it's basic decency. Of course. Still, if you could record the proceedings. Doctor, for posterity, think of future generations studying interspecies relations. Alex sighed. There was no point arguing with Dr. Voss when he was in full academic fervor. I'll consider it. Excellent. Oh, and Alex, do be careful. The Crimson Guard has moved beyond mere protests lately. There have been incidents. What kind of incidents? Vandalism. Mostly, but some physical altercations. Nothing serious yet, but escalation seems likely. And station security. Stretched thin, as always. Too many species, too many conflicts, not enough officers who understand the nuances of interspecies law. Alex left the conversation more worried than before. He'd been so focused on the personal aspect of his relationship with Seraphine that he'd ignored the broader implications. The Crimson Guard wasn't just a group of prejudiced humans. They were an organized movement with growing support. His worry increased when he found his quarters vandalized that evening. Someone had spray-painted "Species Traitor" across his door in lurid red letters. Security took images and samples, but Alex could tell from their expressions that they didn't expect to find the culprits. "Maybe you should stay somewhere else for a few nights," the security officer suggested. "Just until things calm down." "Things won't calm down until after the hearing," Alex pointed out. "Maybe not even then. Still, you got friends you can stay with." He thought of Mira, but didn't want to put her at risk. "I'll figure something out." After security left, Alex stood staring at his defaced door. The paint was still wet, glistening like blood in the corridor lights. He touched it experimentally, and his fingers came away stained. "Charming welcome party," a familiar voice said behind him. He turned to find Seraphine, dressed in more casual clothing than he'd seen her wear before, fitted pants and a flowing shirt that somehow made her seem both more normal and more alien. "How did you—" "I have sources throughout the station. Someone vandalizing my partner's door is the kind of thing that gets reported quickly." "Partner? Isn't that what we are?" She studied the graffiti with clinical interest. "Rather unimaginative, at least on Noctura. Our extremists had a sense of poetry to their threats." "I'm glad you can find humor in this." "I find humor, or I find despair. I prefer humor." She turned to him. "Pack some belongings. You're staying in the conservatory until this passes." "I can't impose." "It's not an imposition. It's practical. The conservatory has better security than these residential quarters, and I have guest rooms that haven't been used since my house staff. Well, they're available. What about the propriety of it? Won't this just give the Crimson Guard more ammunition? Let them exhaust themselves firing at shadows. I won't let fear dictate our actions." Alex found himself smiling despite everything. "All right, give me 10 minutes to pack." As he gathered essentials, Seraphine examined his quarters with undisguised curiosity. "So this is how human academics live? In squalor and chaos. In organized dysfunction. Every surface covered with work. But there's a system to it. Those stacks of papers are arranged by topic, not randomly. The books are shelved by frequency of use, not alphabetically. It's rather endearing. You can tell all that from a glance? I've had centuries to learn to read spaces the way others read faces. Environments reflect their inhabitants. What does the conservatory say about you?" "That I'm desperately trying to preserve something already lost. But you knew that already." He paused in his packing to look at her. "Is that how you see it? As preservation of the past?" "How else should I see it? As cultivation of the future. Those plants aren't just survivors. They're adapting, growing, becoming something new in their new environment. Like you." She was quiet for a moment. "You have a gift for reframing despair into hope. Occupational hazard of being human. We're remarkably good at finding meaning in meaninglessness. Perhaps that's what I need. A human perspective on Nocturne survival. Happy to help. Though my consulting fees are quite reasonable. Just room, board, and protection from xenophobic vandals." "Deal." The conservatory guest quarters were beyond anything Alex had expected. The room was a perfect blend of Nocturne aesthetics and practical comfort, with walls that could shift from opaque to transparent at will, revealing views of the garden. "The previous occupant was my late cousin," Seraphine explained as Alex set down his bags. He was fascinated by architecture that responded to emotional states. "The walls will learn your preferences over time." "Learn how?" "Low-level psychic resonance. Nothing invasive. Think of it as the room getting to know you. That's either comforting or terrifying. Most Nocturne technology walks that line." She showed him how to operate the various systems, lights that adjusted to circadian rhythms, climate controls that could simulate different worlds' atmospheres, even a small alcove where earth plants could grow alongside their nocturne counterparts. You've thought of everything. My people believe in hospitality as a sacred duty. Even in exile, we maintain our standards. Is that what you consider yourself? Exiled? What else would you call it when you can never return home? Diaspora. It implies spread and growth rather than just loss. Your gift again, finding hope in language choices. Language shapes reality. Choose your words carefully, and you choose your world. She smiled. Is that from your xenolinguistics textbooks? Actually, it's from my grandmother. She was a poet before she became a colonial administrator. A family tradition of choosing words over practicality? Something like that. They spent the rest of the evening in comfortable companionship. Alex worked on his analysis of the conservatory's communication networks, while Seraphine tended to her plants. Occasionally, they would share observations or questions, building on each other's ideas with an ease that surprised them both. You know, Alex said as they shared a late dinner of foods from both their worlds. This is nice. Being driven from your home by bigots? Having someone to face the bigots with. He gestured between them. This, whatever this is becoming. Are you always so direct about feelings? Only when I'm terrified of losing something before I fully understand what it is. Seraphine reached across the table to take his hand. We have 3 days before the hearing. Whatever happens there, it won't change what's growing between us. You sound certain. I've lived long enough to recognize the rare when I find it. This, us, is rare. No pressure or anything. All the pressure in the universe, she corrected. But pressure creates diamonds, as your people say. It also causes explosions. Then we'll explode beautifully. That night, Alex lay in his responsive room, watching the walls shift through subtle patterns that seemed to mirror his emotional state. Through the transparent sections, he could see the conservatory's bioluminescent glow, a constant reminder of the alien world he'd stumbled into. His communication device showed dozens of messages, some supportive, many hostile, a few from journalists wanting his story. He ignored them all except one from Mira. Saw your door. Offer of my couch stands. Also, the linguistics department is organizing a support petition. Dr. Voss is driving everyone crazy with his enthusiasm, but his heart's in the right place. Stay safe. He smiled. Typing back. Thanks, but I'm okay. Staying with S at the conservatory. Tell Dr. Voss I'll try to get him his data. You stay safe too. Her response was almost immediate. With S, huh? Moving fast for someone with commitment issues. Shut up. Make me. Also, be happy. You deserve it. He set the device aside and closed his eyes, letting the alien room learn his sleep patterns. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, more preparation for the hearing, probably more harassment from the Crimson Guard. But tonight, he was safe in a sanctuary that smelled of midnight flowers, building something unprecedented with someone impossible. For the first time in years, he fell asleep without loneliness as his companion. The next 3 days passed in a whirlwind of preparation and escalating tension. News of the hearing had sparked station-wide debate about interspecies relationships, with opinions ranging from enthusiastic support to vitriolic opposition. Alex and Seraphine found themselves at the center of a controversy that had been simmering long before their chance encounter at the festival. We've become symbols, Seraphine observed on the morning of the hearing. They were in the conservatory's main chamber, surrounded by plants that seemed to sense the day's importance. The memoriam trees rustled with agitation, their leaves whispering emotional echoes of similar moments from nocturne history. I never wanted to be a symbol, Alex said, adjusting the formal robes Mira had insisted he wear. I just wanted to study languages and drink coffee, and propose to random aliens at festivals. That too, apparently. She smiled, but there was tension in it. Despite her apparent calm, Alex had learned to read the subtle signs of her anxiety, the way she held her shoulders, the slight dimming of her natural luminescence. "Whatever happens today," he began. "Don't," she interrupted. "No preemptive farewells. We face this together, and we face what comes after together." "Even if they rule against you?" "Especially then." She moved close, adjusting his collar with careful fingers. "I've run from too many things in my long life. I won't run from this." The council chambers were packed when they arrived. The amphitheater-style room could hold thousands, and every seat was filled. Alex spotted familiar faces. Dr. Voss with his recording equipment, Mira in the section reserved for character witnesses, even some of his students. But he also saw the Crimson Guard, a block of red-clad humans whose hostile stares followed their every movement. The council itself was a study in diversity. 7 beings from different species, each chosen to represent their people's interests on the station. The human counselor, Director Martinez, looked uncomfortable. The others ranged from curious to openly skeptical. "This hearing will determine whether Lady Seraphine of House Stellaris poses a threat to station security and human welfare," the Thraxian council leader announced, her translator rendering the clicks and whistles into crisp standard. "The petitioners may present their case." The Crimson Guard's representative was a man named Marcus Chen, whose clean-cut appearance and calm demeanor made him more dangerous than any ranting zealot. He spoke of humanity's unique vulnerability, of the need to protect their species from predatory influences, of the documented dangers of nocturan feeding practices. "We don't dispute that Lady Seraphine has behaved correctly thus far," Chen said smoothly. "But how long before hunger overrides courtesy? How long before Mr. Rourke becomes not a partner but a resource? We've all heard the stories from the Nocturan homeworld, entire populations drained to feed the vampire nobility." "Objection," Seraphine said calmly. "Those stories are fabrications based on misunderstandings of our culture." "You'll have your chance to respond," the council leader said. "Continue, Mr. Chen." Chen presented his case with surgical precision. Historical accounts, mostly falsified, Alex noted, of nocturan predation. Medical data, wildly misinterpreted, about the effects of life energy transfer. Testimonials, clearly coached, from humans who claimed to feel threatened by Seraphine's presence. Through it all, Seraphine sat perfectly still, her face a mask of composure. Only Alex, sitting close enough to feel the minute tremors in her hands, knew how much the lies hurt her. Finally, Chen concluded with an emotional appeal. "We stand at a crossroads. Will we protect humanity's future, or will we allow ourselves to be slowly consumed by those who see us as nothing more than food? The choice is yours, honored counselors." Applause erupted from the Crimson Guard section. The council leader waited for it to die down before speaking. "Lady Seraphine, you may now present your defense." Seraphine rose with fluid grace. For a moment, she simply stood there, letting the chamber see her fully, not as the monster Chen had painted, but as a being of dignity and sorrow. "I could spend hours refuting Mr. Chen's claims," she began, her voice carrying without amplification. "I could present scientific data about the symbiotic nature of proper life energy exchange. I could share testimonials from the thousands of species who have lived peacefully alongside nocturans for millennia. But I think there's a more important point to make." She paused, crimson eyes sweeping the chamber. "I am the last of my house. My world is dead, consumed by a dying star. My people are scattered across the galaxy, refugees clinging to whatever sanctuary we can find. And in this time of loss and loneliness, I found something unexpected. Connection with a human who saw me not as a threat or a curiosity, but as a person." "That's exactly the problem," Chen interjected. "You've manipulated him into what?" Alex stood, unable to remain silent, into treating her with basic decency, into recognizing that being different doesn't mean being dangerous. "Mr. Rourke," the council leader warned, "you'll have your opportunity to speak as a witness." "I'll speak now," Alex said, moving to stand beside Seraphine. "Because this isn't really about her, is it? It's about fear. Fear of change. Fear of the other. Fear of a future where humanity isn't the dominant species in every room." "Alex," Seraphine whispered, but he was already building momentum. "You want to talk about predation? Let's talk about human history. Let's talk about colonization, exploitation, the 1,000 ways we've fed on each other's suffering. Seraphine hasn't taken anything from me. She's given knowledge, perspective, hope. If that threatens you, maybe you should examine why." "Because she's not human," someone from the Crimson Guard section shouted. "Neither is Dr. Voss," Alex shot back. "Neither are half the beings in this chamber. Are we going to deport everyone who doesn't share our DNA? Create a pure human enclave floating in space? We tried that on Earth. It led to centuries of war and suffering." "This is different," Chen said coldly. "This is about survival." "No," Seraphine said quietly, but her voice carried absolute authority. "This is about evolution." She addressed the council directly. "Humanity stands at a threshold. You can choose isolation, building walls against anything that challenges your understanding, or you can choose integration, learning from and with the species around you. Alex and I, what we're building, we're not a threat to humanity. We're an example of what humanity could become." "Pretty words," Chen sneered. "But words won't protect humans when your kind decides we're more useful as food than friends." "Then let me offer more than words," Seraphine said. She turned to Alex, and he saw the decision in her eyes before she spoke. "Let me offer proof." Seraphine, no. But she was already moving, taking his hands in hers. "Trust me," she whispered, and then louder, "for the chamber. If the council permits, I will demonstrate the true nature of Nocturan life-energy exchange. Show them what it really means, not the horror stories they've been fed." The council members conferred briefly. Alex could see the curiosity warring with caution in their expressions. Finally, the leader nodded. "Proceed, but carefully. Any sign of harm to Mr. Rourke, and security will intervene." "There will be no harm," Seraphine assured them. She faced Alex fully, her hands still holding his. "This is faster than I intended, but perhaps it's necessary. Are you willing?" Alex thought about all the moments that had led here, the joke proposal, the nights in the conservatory, the growing understanding between them. "I trust you," he said simply. "Then open your mind. Lower the barriers humans instinctively maintain. Let me show you what we truly are." Alex had experienced the edge of this connection before, in small touches and shared moments. But this was different. This was full contact, conscious and deliberate. He closed his eyes and let his mental walls fall. The sensation was indescribable. It wasn't draining, it was filling. He felt Seraphine's presence like cool water in a desert, her centuries of experience brushing against his consciousness. But more than that, he felt the exchange. As she drew on his life energy, she gave back in equal measure. Vitality flowed between them, creating a circuit that strengthened both. Through the connection, he caught glimpses of her true self, the weight of centuries, the pain of loss, the desperate hope she'd felt when he'd called out at the festival, but also joy, wonder at his human perspective, and something deeper that might have been love. When she finally pulled back, gently severing the connection, Alex found himself more energized than exhausted. The chamber had gone completely silent, everyone staring at the soft glow that surrounded them both, visible proof of the energy exchange. "That," Seraphine said, addressing the stunned council, is what true life energy sharing looks like. Not predation, but symbiosis. Not theft, but gift. Impossible, Chen breathed, his composure finally cracking. The medical data says. The medical data is based on forced feeding. Seraphine cut him off. On the rare cases where desperate or criminal nocturnes took without permission. This is what it looks like when both parties consent and trust. This is what Alex and I share. Dr. Voss was practically vibrating in his seat, no doubt already composing papers about what he'd witnessed. Throughout the chamber, beings were reassessing everything they thought they knew about nocturnes. I've lived for 800 years, Seraphine continued. In all that time, I've never forced a feeding, never taken what wasn't freely given. I came to this station seeking sanctuary, not hunting grounds. What Alex and I have found together, it's not about feeding. It's about connection across species. The very thing this station was built to encourage. The council will deliberate, the leader announced, clearly shaken by what she'd witnessed. All parties will be notified of our decision within the hour. As the chamber emptied, Alex and Seraphine were surrounded by supporters and detractors alike. Mira pushed through to embrace Alex, tears in her eyes. That was beautiful, she said, and terrifying, but mostly beautiful. Dr. Voss was babbling about energy signatures and symbiotic matrices, while journalists shouted questions from all directions. Security formed a protective cordon, escorting them to a private waiting room. Once alone, Alex slumped into a chair, the adrenaline finally wearing off. Did we just demonstrate interspecies energy exchange in front of the entire station? We did, Seraphine confirmed, sitting beside him. Are you all right? I'm great. Is that normal? After a proper exchange? Yes. You'll likely feel energized for hours, possibly days. Your cells are essentially vibrating at a higher frequency right now. That explains why everything looks sharper. Also why I can suddenly hear conversations 3 rooms away. Temporary enhancement. It will fade, though repeated exchanges can make some improvements permanent. Like extended lifespan? Among other things. She studied him carefully. How do you feel about what you saw? What you felt from me? Alex considered the question. Through the connection, he'd experienced centuries of memory, alien perspectives that should have been incomprehensible, but somehow, at the core, he'd found something utterly familiar. I feel like I finally understand you, he said. Not just intellectually, but essentially. Does that make sense? Perfect sense. It's why the blood bond is so sacred to us. It's not about feeding. It's about knowing and being known completely. No pressure or anything. Alex echoed his earlier words. All the pressure in the universe. She agreed. But you handled it beautifully. They waited in comfortable silence, hands linked, the residual energy of their connection creating a soft aurora where their skin touched. Whatever the council decided, Alex knew something fundamental had shifted. They were no longer just 2 lonely beings finding comfort in each other. They were partners in the truest sense, bound by understanding that transcended species. The hour passed slowly. When the door finally opened, it was Director Martinez who entered, his expression unreadable. The council has reached a decision, he said formally. By a vote of 6-1, we find that Lady Seraphine poses no threat to station security or human welfare. The petition for deportation is denied. Alex felt relief flood through him, followed immediately by curiosity. Who was the dissenting vote? I was. Martinez admitted. Not because I believe Lady Seraphine is dangerous, but because I believe the station isn't ready for what you represent. Change is coming too fast for some of us to process. Change is the only constant in the universe, Seraphine said gently. Fighting it only brings pain. Perhaps, But pain is sometimes easier than growth. He turned to leave, then paused. For what it's worth, what you showed us today, it was remarkable. I hope my species can learn to see opportunity where we now see threat. After he left, Alex and Seraphine sat in stunned silence. They'd won. Despite the fear and prejudice, despite the Crimson Guard's campaign, they'd won. So, Alex said eventually, what happens now? Now? Seraphine smiled, and for the first time since he'd met her, it was without any underlying sadness. Now we build that future we talked about, the one that's neither human nor nocturan, but uniquely ours. I like the sound of that, though we should probably start with something simpler, like that coffee I promised you. Coffee sounds perfect, though I should warn you, after an energy exchange, all your senses are heightened. Everything will taste more intense. Then I'll make it extra weak. Can't have you getting addicted to caffeine on top of everything else. Too late, she said, standing and pulling him up with her. I'm already addicted to something far more dangerous. What's that? Hope, and the human who brought it back into my life. As they left the council chambers, word of the decision was already spreading. They passed groups of humans and aliens discussing what they'd witnessed, debating what it meant for the future of interspecies relations. The Crimson Guard contingent glared at them with undisguised hatred, but made no move to interfere. They won't give up, Alex noted quietly. No, they won't, but neither will we. Seraphine squeezed his hand. Every great change faces resistance. The fact that we've sparked such strong reactions means we're touching something fundamental. Fundamental fears? And fundamental hopes. Look around for every hostile face. There are two curious ones. We've shown them something new today. Some will reject it, but others will wonder what other impossibilities might be possible. They made their way back to the conservatory, where the plants seemed to sense their success. The memoriam trees rustled with what felt like approval, while the phase blooms shimmered between dimensions in what might have been celebration. You know, Alex said as they settled into the familiar comfort of the garden. I just realized something. What's that? We're still technically engaged, the whole fake proposal thing. Seraphine laughed, the sound bright as starlight. So we are, though I'd hardly call it fake anymore. No, Alex agreed. Definitely not fake, but maybe we should do it properly this time, without the crowd and the amplifier and the joke aspect. Are you proposing to me? Alex roared. I'm proposing that we figure out what we are to each other without the pressure of public spectacle, that we take time to explore this connection, to build something real and lasting. That sounds remarkably mature for someone who started this by shouting at a festival. I have my moments. She moved closer, cupping his face in her cool hands. Then yes, I accept your proposal. Again. Properly this time. Good. Because I have a feeling we're going to need each other for whatever comes next. The Crimson Guard won't be our only challenge, she warned. There will be those among my own people who see our bond as betrayal. Both sides have extremists who prefer purity to progress. Then we'll face them together, human and nocturan, united in stubbornness if nothing else. I prefer to think of it as determination. That too. As the artificial day cycle shifted toward evening, they sat together in the conservatory, planning a future that had seemed impossible just days before. There would be challenges, cultural differences to navigate, prejudices to overcome, the simple logistics of building a life between species. But there would also be discoveries, shared experiences, and the slow weaving together of two lives into something new. I have a confession, Seraphine said as they watched the shadow flowers begin their nocturnal blooming. Oh? When you called out at the festival, I almost didn't respond. I stood at the edge of the crowd for a full minute, debating whether to reveal myself. What changed your mind? The way you laughed after. Self-deprecating but not bitter. Lonely but not broken. I recognized a kindred spirit and thought, what if? What if this ridiculous moment could become something real? And now? Now I know it has. We've moved from jest to genuine in less than a week. That has to mean something. It means we're either very lucky or very foolish. Perhaps both, but I'd rather be a lucky fool than a wise coward. Alex raised an imaginary glass. To lucky fools and the impossible futures they build. To impossible futures, Seraphine agreed, her crimson eyes bright with promise. Outside the conservatory, Nephra Station continued its endless rotation, carrying millions of lives through the cosmos. The Crimson Guard would regroup and plan new strategies. The Council would debate the implications of their decision. Scholars like Dr. Voss would analyze and theorize about what they'd witnessed. But inside the sanctuary of alien plants and borrowed hope, two unlikely partners sat together, no longer lonely, no longer lost. They had found each other through chance and choice, jest and genuine emotion. Now they would face whatever came next the same way, together, building bridges across the vast spaces between species, between hearts, between the past and the future. They were creating one moment at a time. The phase blooms shimmered around them, existing in multiple realities simultaneously. It seemed fitting, Alex thought. After all, they were doing the same thing, creating a reality where human and Nocturan could be partners, where differences were celebrated rather than feared, where love could bloom in the spaces between the stars. It wouldn't be easy. Nothing worthwhile ever was. But as Seraphine's hand found his in the garden's bioluminescent glow, Alex knew they would make it work. They had to. The universe had answered his joke with something real, and he wasn't about to waste that gift. Tomorrow, Seraphine said softly, I'd like to show you the deep garden, the places even I rarely go, where the oldest plants remember Noctura before the dying began. I'd be honored, Alex replied, understanding the trust such an offer represented. But tonight, she continued, let's just be. No councils, no protesters, no grand gestures. Just us. Just us, he agreed. And in that moment, it was everything. The weeks following the council hearing brought a strange new rhythm to their lives. The initial media frenzy gradually died down, replaced by a watchful curiosity from the station's inhabitants. Some beings went out of their way to show support, small nods in corridors, friendly greetings in the markets. Others made their displeasure known through cold shoulders and whispered comments. But most simply observed, waiting to see what would come of this unprecedented union. Alex had returned to his classes, though he maintained his residence in the conservatory's guest quarters. The vandalism of his original quarters had escalated after the hearing, and station security seemed unable or unwilling to provide adequate protection. Seraphine had insisted he stay, and Alex found he had no desire to leave the sanctuary they'd created together. Your presence has changed the garden, Seraphine told him one evening as they walked through a section where earth plants now grew alongside their Nocturan counterparts. The flora responds to emotional resonance, and you've brought something new, a different frequency of life. Indeed, Alex could see the changes. Where his daily paths crossed through the conservatory, hybrid blooms had begun appearing, plants that seemed to combine Nocturan and earth characteristics in impossible ways. One particular vine had developed leaves that shifted between photosynthesis and the shadow feeding of Nocturan flora, creating a twilight existence that shouldn't have been possible. Is that normal? He asked, touching one of the hybrid leaves gently. Nothing about our situation is normal, Seraphine replied. But no, I've never seen anything like this before. The plants are adapting to our combined presence, creating something new. Like us, she agreed. Their daily routine had developed organically. Mornings found Alex preparing coffee. He'd perfected a blend that Seraphine could enjoy without overwhelming her sensitive palate, while she tended to the dawn-blooming plants. They would share breakfast and conversation before he left for classes, then reconvene in the evenings for dinner and what had become their favorite activity, collaborative research. "Look at this," Alex said one night, projecting his data onto one of the conservatory's bioscreens. "I've been analyzing the communication patterns of your whisper vines compared to Earth's fungal networks. The similarities are remarkable, but the differences, that's where it gets interesting." Seraphine leaned in, her shoulder brushing his as she studied the data. They'd grown comfortable with casual touch, though both remained aware of the deeper connections possible between them. Since the public demonstration at the hearing, they'd been careful about energy exchange, understanding its intensity and unwilling to treat it casually. "The whisper vines operate on multiple dimensional frequencies," she observed. "Your fungal networks are limited to chemical and electrical signals in three-dimensional space." "Right, but look what happens when I model a hybrid system." Alex manipulated the projection, showing theoretical interaction patterns. "If we could somehow bridge the dimensional gap, create a translation protocol between the two systems, we could enable true cross-species botanical communication," Seraphine finished, her eyes bright with excitement. "Not just between individual plants, but between entire ecosystems from different worlds. Dr. Voss is going to lose his mind when he sees this. He's already lost it several times over our partnership. This might finish the job." They worked late into the night, building on each other's insights with an ease that still surprised them both. Alex brought human innovation and fresh perspectives. Seraphine contributed centuries of knowledge and intuitive understanding of Noctura and biotechnology. Together, they were pushing the boundaries of what either species had thought possible. It was during one of these late-night sessions that Mira found them, using her emergency access to enter the conservatory. "Am I interrupting?" she asked, though her expression suggested she knew exactly what she was interrupting. Two researchers so deep in their work they'd forgotten the outside world existed. "Mira," Alex said, blinking as he surfaced from the theoretical models. "What time is it?" "Past midnight. You missed our dinner plans. Again." "Oh, hell, I'm sorry. We were just—" "Revolutionizing interspecies botanical communication. I can see that." She moved closer, studying their work with professional interest. "This is actually incredible. Have you published anything yet?" "We're being careful," Seraphine explained. "Too much attention too fast could draw the wrong kind of scrutiny." "You mean like the Crimson Guard's new campaign?" Mira's expression darkened. "That's actually why I'm here. There's something you need to know." She pulled up her own datapad, showing them a series of documents. "They've moved beyond petitions and protests. My sources in station security found evidence of a planned escalation. They're targeting other interspecies couples now, using you two as an example of dangerous precedent." "How bad?" Alex asked, though he could already see the answer in Mira's face. 3 couples have reported harassment in the past week. A human-Zephyrian pair had their quarters ransacked. A Thraxian human couple was attacked in the lower markets, though security arrived before anyone was seriously hurt. "And the station authorities?" Seraphine's voice was calm, but Alex could see the tension in her posture. "Overwhelmed and understaffed. As always, they're treating these as isolated incidents rather than a coordinated campaign. Because acknowledging coordination would mean acknowledging the Crimson Guard as a terrorist organization," Alex said bitterly. "Exactly. Bad for the station's reputation as a safe haven for all species." Seraphine stood gracefully, moving to tend a cluster of night-blooming flowers that responded to emotional distress. "We knew this would happen. Our visibility made us targets, but also symbols. The question is how we respond." "Carefully," Mira said immediately. "The Crimson Guard wants you to overreact, to do something they can use to justify their narrative of dangerous aliens. But we can't do nothing. Alex argued. Other couples are suffering because of us. Not because of you, Mira corrected. Because of hatred that existed long before you met. You just gave it a focus. They discussed options late into the night. Increased security measures, public statements, coordination with other interspecies couples for mutual support. Eventually, Mira left with promises to keep them informed of any new developments. Alone again. Alex and Seraphine sat in the conservatory's central chamber, surrounded by plants that hummed with quiet life. "I'm sorry," Alex said quietly. "I never meant for our relationship to put others at risk." "The risk was always there," Seraphine replied. "We simply brought it into the light. Sometimes that's necessary for healing to begin." Very philosophical for someone whose species is being targeted by extremists. 8 centuries of life teaches you that extremism is temporary. Fear flares and fades, but connection, real connection between beings, that endures. Speaking from experience, my grandmother lived through the first Nocturne contact wars. Different species, same fears. It took time, patience, and more bloodshed than anyone wanted. But eventually, understanding prevailed. How long is eventually? For her, 50 years. But changes happen faster now. The universe is smaller, more connected. What took generations might only take years. Or months? Alex asked hopefully. Or months, she agreed, though her smile was tinged with doubt. They retired to their separate quarters, maintaining some boundaries despite their deepening connection. But Alex found himself unable to sleep, his mind churning with worries and possibilities. Finally, he gave up and returned to the main conservatory, not surprised to find Seraphine there as well. "Couldn't sleep either?" he asked. "Nocturnes require less sleep than humans, but yes, my thoughts were restless." They sat together beside the reflecting pool where bioluminescent lilies created constellations on the water's surface. The station's night cycle was deep around them, only the garden's gentle glow providing light. "Tell me about Noctura," Alex said suddenly. "Not the facts or the history. Tell me how you remember it." Seraphine was quiet for a long moment, her reflection wavering in the pool beside his. "I remember the sound," she said finally. "Our cities sang, buildings grown from resonant crystal that hummed with the planet's rotation. Each district had its own harmony, and you could navigate by music alone. That's beautiful. I remember the taste of darkness. True darkness, not the artificial night of stations. It had weight, texture. We could wrap ourselves in it like a blanket, feel it nourish our cells the way sunlight feeds yours. Do you miss it? Every day. But missing something doesn't mean you can't find new things to love." She turned to look at him directly. "I never thought I'd appreciate artificial sunlight, but watching you work in it, seeing how it brings out the gold in your eyes, I'm learning to find beauty in brightness too." "Seraphine, I know we've been careful since the hearing," she continued. "Both of us wary of the intensity we shared. But I want you to know that careful doesn't mean reluctant. I'm not afraid of what's growing between us. Neither am I," Alex admitted. Terrified, amazed, occasionally overwhelmed, but not afraid. "Then perhaps it's time we stopped holding back." She extended her hand, palm up, an invitation rather than a demand. Alex looked at it, understanding what she was offering. Not just another energy exchange, but a deepening of their bond, a step towards something more permanent than their careful courtship. He took her hand. This time, the connection formed slowly, gently, not the desperate proof they'd shown the council, but a deliberate joining. Alex felt her consciousness brush against his like silk across skin, cool and smooth and ancient, but there was warmth there too, growing stronger with each passing moment. Through the bond, he experienced her memories more clearly, centuries of life condensed into impressions and emotions. the joy of her first flight through Noctura's crystal canyons, the pain of watching her world's slow death, the loneliness of exile, and threading through it all, like a golden thread in dark fabric, the hope his presence had awakened. In return, he shared his own experiences, his childhood fascination with language, the heartbreak at Kepler Station that had closed him off, the slowly growing wonder of their connection, his fears, his dreams, his tentative love. Love? The word resonated between them, neither claiming it nor denying it, simply acknowledging its presence like a seed waiting to bloom. When they finally separated, the conservatory around them had responded to their emotional resonance. Flowers that normally bloomed in sequence were all open at once, creating a symphony of color and scent. The whisper vines carried messages between plants at accelerated speed, creating a rustling percussion. Even the usually static memoriam trees swayed without any breeze. "The garden approves," Seraphine said softly, her voice carrying wonder. "It's not the only one," Alex replied, still feeling the afterglow of their connection. "That was... I know. Is it always like that?" "No," she admitted. "This is more... deeper. We're creating something I don't have words for." A linguist and an 800-year-old vampire at a loss for words. "We should document this for posterity." She laughed, the sound mixing with the garden's celebration. "Later, right now, I just want to exist in this moment with you." They stayed by the pool until the station's dawn cycle began, watching the artificial light slowly transform the conservatory. Plants shifted from night-to-day configurations, some closing while others opened. It was like watching the garden breathe. "We should talk about what this means," Alex said eventually. "The deepening bond. I mean, we should," Seraphine agreed. "But not now. Now we have classes to attend and research to conduct and extremists to confound with our continued existence." The usual Tuesday, then. Precisely. As they prepared for the day ahead, Alex felt something fundamental had shifted. They were no longer just exploring possibility. They were building reality. Whatever challenges came next, they would face them not as two individuals finding connection, but as partners creating a new form of symbiosis. The Crimson Guard could rage. Critics could doubt. The universe could throw every obstacle in their path. But here in this garden between worlds, love was taking root in impossible soil. And like all living things, it would find a way to grow. The attack came 3 days later. Alex was returning from evening classes, his mind full of conjugation patterns and theoretical frameworks, when he noticed the corridors were unusually empty. His instincts, sharpened by weeks of low-level harassment, screamed warning. He was reaching for his communication device when they struck, 4 figures in the red-trimmed masks of the Crimson Guard, moving with practiced coordination. The first blow caught him in the ribs, sending him stumbling. The second would have cracked his skull if he hadn't thrown himself sideways, academic texts scattering across the floor. "Species traitor," one attacker hissed, voice distorted by the mask's modulator. "You contaminate humanity with your choices." Alex rolled to avoid a kick, his body remembering self-defense training he'd hoped never to use. "Whereas you elevate it with assault." Perhaps wit wasn't the best response to violence, but it was instinctive. The lead attacker snarled, pulling out what looked like a modified stunner. Illegal on the station, but clearly that wasn't stopping them. The weapon fired, and Alex felt electricity course through his body. Not enough to kill, but enough to drop him to his knees. Through the pain, he heard the footsteps approaching, saw a boot drawing back for a kick that would probably shatter ribs. It never connected. The attacker flew backward, hitting the corridor wall with enough force to crack the panels. Seraphine stood where he'd been, her usual grace transformed into something deadly. Her crimson eyes blazed with fury, and shadows seemed to bend around her like living things. "Touch him again," she said softly, and I'll show you why my species features in your nightmares." The remaining 3 attackers hesitated. They'd clearly expected to find Alex alone, vulnerable. Facing an enraged Nocturan was not part of their plan. One made the mistake of raising his stunner toward her. Seraphine moved faster than human eyes could follow, the weapon clattering to the floor along with 2 of the attacker's fingers. His scream echoed off the walls. "Run!" she commanded. And they did, dragging their injured companions with them. Only when they were gone did she turn to Alex, the deadly predator vanishing as she knelt beside him. "Are you hurt?" "Stunner," he managed, still feeling aftershocks. "Mostly just pain. How did you—" "I felt your distress through our bond. I was 3 sectors away. But—" She helped him sit up, her hands checking for serious injury with gentle efficiency. "I've never moved that fast in my life." Your eyes are still glowing. Adrenaline response, or the Nocturan equivalent? She took a deep breath, visibly centering herself. "We need to get you to medical." "No," Alex said quickly. "That makes this official, brings in security, turns us into victims in the public eye. You were attacked, and you protected me. If we report this, the story becomes violent vampire attacks humans. You know it will." She wanted to argue. He could see it in her face. But she also recognized the truth in his words. Any violence from her, even in defense, would be weaponized against them. Then back to the conservatory, she decided. "I have medical supplies there." She helped him to his feet, supporting his weight when his legs wobbled. As they walked, Alex noticed beings peering from doorways, drawn by the commotion but unwilling to get involved. "So much for station solidarity," he muttered. "Fear makes cowards of most," Seraphine replied. "Don't judge them too harshly. You're being remarkably philosophical for someone who just removed a man's fingers. They'll regenerate with proper medical care. My restraint should be commended. Despite everything." Alex found himself laughing. "Your restraint? Right." Back in the conservatory, Seraphine tended his injuries with a combination of traditional first aid and Nocturan healing techniques. The plants around them responded to their emotional turmoil, some withdrawing, while others seemed to lean in protectively. "This is escalating," she said as she applied a cooling salve to his bruised ribs. "First harassment, now direct violence. The Crimson Guard is testing boundaries and finding them poorly defended." Alex agreed. Station security is either incompetent or complicit. Probably both. She sat back, studying him with those ancient eyes. "You could leave." "What?" "Request a transfer to another station. Complete your studies somewhere the Crimson Guard has no presence. Somewhere safe." Alex caught her hands, ignoring the protest from his bruised body. "I'm not leaving you." "I'm the reason you were attacked." "No. Ignorance and hatred are the reasons I was attacked. You're the reason I survived." He squeezed her hands gently. "We're partners, remember? For better or worse. This isn't what you signed up for." "I signed up for you. Everything else is just details." She kissed him then, fierce and desperate. And he tasted fear beneath the passion. When they separated, her eyes were bright with unshed tears, a startling sight from someone usually so composed. "I can't lose you," she whispered. "Not to them. Not to hate." "You won't," he promised. "We'll be smarter, more careful, travel together, vary our routes, make it harder for them to isolate us. That's not a life, Alex, constantly looking over our shoulders, fearing every shadow. It's temporary. The Crimson Guard overplayed their hand tonight. Violence against a human, even a species traitor, will turn public opinion. Mira's probably already spinning this to our advantage." Indeed, his communication device was buzzing with messages. Mira, as predicted, but also Dr. Voss, other students, even some beings he'd never met offering support and outrage over the attack. "See?" He showed her the screen. "We're not alone in this. A comfort, but will it be enough?" "It has to be." They spent the rest of the night in the conservatory's heart, surrounded by protective plants and shared determination. Neither slept, too aware of how close they'd come to tragedy. As dawn approached, they made plans, security protocols, communication strategies, ways to turn this attack into catalyst for change rather than victory for their enemies. "I've been thinking," Seraphine said as morning light filtered through the dome, "about the hybrid plants, the ones responding to both of us. What about them? They're proof that synthesis is possible, that different forms of life can combine to create something stronger than either alone." She gestured to where earth roses now climbed nocturne crystal trees, their thorns glowing with borrowed bioluminescence. "If plants can do it, why not societies? Because plants don't have prejudice. No, but they have competition. Different species fighting for resources, space, light. Yet here, in the right conditions, they're choosing cooperation over conflict. You think we can create those conditions for people? I think we have to try. The alternative is cycles of violence escalating until someone dies." Alex thought about the attackers, their hatred so intense they'd risk criminal charges to express it. Some people don't want to cooperate, they'd rather destroy than adapt. Then we build around them, create something so beautiful, so obviously beneficial, that their hatred looks as small and petty as it truly is. Through botanical communication networks, through living example, through research that benefits all species, through refusing to let their violence define us. It was idealistic, possibly naive, but watching the dawn light play across hybrid flowers that shouldn't exist. Alex felt hope kindle in his chest. They'd already achieved the impossible, a human and nocturne not just coexisting but thriving together. Why not push further? "All right," he said. "Let's change the world through gardening." "And love," she added softly. "Never underestimate the power of visible, defiant love." Visible and defiant. I like it. Good. Because I have an idea that's both. Her idea, as it turned out, was a public symposium. Not a defensive response to the attack, but a celebration of interspecies cooperation. They would present their research on hybrid botanical networks, demonstrate the practical benefits of human-nocturne partnership, and invite other mixed couples to share their experiences. "Turn their negative attention into positive spotlight," Mira said when they brought her into the planning. "I love it. The linguistics department will sponsor it. Dr. Voss nearly cried when I suggested it." "The Crimson Guard will try to disrupt it," Alex warned. "Let them try. We'll have security this time, real security, not station incompetence. I know some Thraxian mercenaries who specialize in crowd control." "Mercenaries?" Seraphine raised an eyebrow. "Very professional mercenaries. They do wedding security on the side." "Of course they do." Planning consumed the next 2 weeks. Word spread quickly through the station's networks, generating excitement and opposition in equal measure. The Crimson Guard released statements condemning the symposium as propaganda for genetic contamination, while progressive groups hailed it as a long-overdue celebration of diversity. Alex and Seraphine worked tirelessly, preparing presentations that balanced scientific rigor with accessible wonder. They documented the hybrid plants, recorded the communication patterns between Earth and nocturne flora, and created interactive demonstrations that would let attendees experience botanical empathy safely. "You're exhausting yourself," Seraphine noted one evening, finding Alex asleep at his workstation. "Worth it," he mumbled, not opening his eyes. "This could change everything. Not if you collapse before presenting it." She guided him to their shared sitting area, another boundary that had dissolved naturally in recent days. They maintained separate bedrooms, but most of their waking hours were spent together, their lives intertwining like the vines in their garden. "Rest," she commanded, settling beside him. "I'll keep working on the sensory translation protocols." "Together," he insisted, fighting exhaustion. "We do this together, or not at all. Stubborn human, persistent vampire. Complementary traits," she conceded, pulling up the data on a shared screen. "Now, about the frequency harmonics." They worked until Alex truly couldn't keep his eyes open. Then Seraphine guided him to his room with gentle insistence. As she turned to leave, he caught her hand. "Stay," he asked. Just to sleep. I don't want to be alone tonight." She studied his face, reading the vulnerability there. They'd been careful about physical boundaries, understanding that their connection went deep enough to require caution. But comfort was different from passion. "All right," she agreed, settling beside him on the bed, fully clothed and careful to maintain space between them. But as sleep took him, Alex found himself gravitating toward her coolness. And she didn't pull away. They woke hours later tangled together, the artificial dawn painting them in soft light. It felt natural, right, like puzzle pieces finally aligned. "Good morning," Seraphine said softly, not moving. "Morning," Alex replied, equally reluctant to break the spell. "This is nice." "It is. We should probably talk about boundaries and expectations and all that responsible relationship stuff." "We should," she agreed, "but not right now." "No, not right now." They lay there as the conservatory awakened around them, listening to the morning songs of hybrid birds that had recently appeared, earth sparrows with nocturne coloring, singing in harmonies that bridged worlds. Eventually, responsibility called. The symposium was in 3 days, and there was still much to prepare. But something had shifted again. Another wall dissolved by proximity and trust. They moved around each other with new ease. Casual touches and shared smiles replacing careful distance. "You're glowing," Mira observed when she arrived for a planning session. "Both of you. Actually, it's slightly disturbing." "We're happy," Alex said simply. "Despite everything, we're happy." "Because of everything," Seraphine corrected. "Pressure creates diamonds, remember? And you two are certainly under pressure," Mira said, her expression growing serious. "There's been chatter in the networks. The Crimson Guard is planning something for the symposium. We expected that. This might be bigger than protests. My sources mentioned weapons, coordinated strikes. They're desperate to stop this before it legitimizes interspecies relationships further." Alex felt Seraphine tense beside him. "Then we increase security." "Already done. But Alex, maybe you should consider presenting remotely. You're their primary target." "Absolutely not," he said firmly. "We present together or not at all. That's the whole point, showing that human-nocturne partnership isn't just possible but beneficial, even if it puts you at risk. Especially then. We can't let fear dictate our choices." Mira sighed. "I knew you'd say that. Just promise you'll be careful." "When am I not careful?" Alex asked. "Do you want the chronological list or just the highlights?" Mira and Seraphine said in unison, then looked at each other in surprise. "Great," Alex muttered. "You're bonding over mocking me." "Someone has to keep your ego in check," Mira said. "Now, about the presentation order." They finalized plans as the day wore on, each detail carefully considered. The symposium would be held in the station's largest auditorium, with multiple exit strategies and security checkpoints. They'd present their research first, followed by testimonials from other interspecies couples, then open demonstrations of the hybrid garden's capabilities. "It's ambitious," Seraphine said as they reviewed the schedule one final time. "It's necessary," Alex replied. "We get one chance to shift public opinion. We need to make it count. No pressure or anything. All the pressure in the universe?" He echoed their running joke. But we've got this. Together. Together, she agreed, and sealed it with a kiss that tasted of starlight and possibility. The night before the symposium, they couldn't sleep. Nervous energy had them pacing the conservatory, checking and rechecking their presentations, tending plants that didn't need tending. What if no one comes? Alex worried. What if everyone comes? Seraphine countered. What if the Crimson Guard actually attacks? What if they don't, and we change minds peacefully? You're annoyingly optimistic for an ancient vampire. You're adorably anxious for a revolutionary. They stopped pacing, facing each other in the garden's heart. Around them, hybrid plants swayed without wind, responding to their emotional turmoil. Whatever happens tomorrow, Alex said, I want you to know something. Alex? No. Let me say this. These past weeks with you have been the most challenging, terrifying, wonderful time of my life. You've opened my eyes to possibilities I never imagined, pushed me to be braver than I thought possible. I love you. Seraphine. Completely. Impossibly. Defiantly. She was silent for a long moment. Crimson eyes bright, then she smiled, radiant as a nova. I love you too, Alex Rourke, against all odds and reason. I love you. They came together in the garden's embrace, surrounded by impossible flowers and improbable hope. Whatever tomorrow brought, they would face it as one, human and nocturne, scholar and survivor, partners in the truest sense. The symposium would be their greatest challenge yet, but standing there in their hybrid Eden, love declared and shared, they felt ready for anything, even changing the world. The auditorium was packed beyond capacity. Beings of every species crowded the aisles, filled the balconies, and spilled into overflow rooms where the presentation would be broadcast. The air hummed with curiosity, anticipation, and no small amount of tension. Alex stood backstage, fighting nausea that had nothing to do with stage fright and everything to do with the magnitude of what they were attempting. Seraphine stood beside him, outwardly calm, but he could feel her anxiety through their bond, a low thrum of controlled worry. Bigger turnout than expected, Mira reported, returning from a reconnaissance of the crowd. I see department heads, council members, even some off-of-station visitors who came specifically for this. And the Crimson Guard? Seraphine asked. Present but contained. Security has them clustered in Section 7, away from the main exits. They're behaving so far. So far, Alex muttered. Dr. Voss appeared, all four arms gesturing excitedly. This is magnificent. The linguistic implications alone, the way you'll be demonstrating nonverbal communication across species barriers. I'm vibrating with anticipation. Please don't actually vibrate, Alex requested. It's distracting. No promises. Oh, they're calling for you. Remember, speak slowly for the translation protocols. And if you could emphasize the theoretical framework in Section 3. Doctor, Seraphine interrupted gently. We'll do our best. Of course. Of course. Break a leg, or whatever the appropriate human expression is. He scurried away, leaving them in relative quiet. Alex took a deep breath, centering himself. This was it, their chance to reshape the narrative, to show the station and beyond what interspecies cooperation could achieve. Ready? Seraphine asked. No. You? Not at all. Perfect. Let's go change the world. They walked onto the stage hand in hand, and the auditorium erupted. Applause. Certainly, but also boos from Section 7, curious murmurs from the scientific community, and what sounded like ululating support from a group of Zephyrians. Thank you all for coming, Alex began, his voice carrying through the advanced acoustics. 6 weeks ago, I stood in a crowded plaza and jokingly asked if anyone wanted to marry me. Today, I stand here with my partner to show you what that joke became. a partnership that challenges assumptions and creates possibilities. We are not here to defend our relationship, Seraphine continued seamlessly. We're here to share what we've discovered together, to demonstrate that difference is not danger, that cooperation yields results neither species could achieve alone. They launched into their presentation with practiced synchronization. Alex explained the theoretical framework while Seraphine demonstrated practical applications. They showed video of the hybrid plants, displayed data on cross-species botanical communication, and explained how human innovation combined with Noctura wisdom had created entirely new forms of life. The audience was captivated despite themselves. Even the Crimson Guard section had gone quiet, though Alex could see their leader, Marcus Chen, taking furious notes. But theory and data only go so far, Seraphine said as they reached the demonstration portion. To truly understand what we've achieved, you need to experience it. Station workers wheeled in several hybrid plants, their containers specially designed to safely share their properties. The whisper vine, adapted to communicate with human neural patterns. The hybrid memoriam tree that could store and share emotions across species barriers. The phase bloom that existed partially in multiple dimensions, now stabilized through human mathematical modeling. We invite volunteers to experience these marvels firsthand, Alex announced. Under controlled conditions, with full safety protocols, who wants to literally feel what cross-species cooperation can create? Hands shot up across the auditorium. They selected volunteers carefully, a mix of species, including some skeptics, one by one. Beings touched the plants and experienced something unprecedented. True communication beyond language. Emotion and understanding shared across biological barriers. A human woman gasped as the whisper vine showed her how Nocturans experienced darkness as nourishment. A Thraxian clicked in wonder as the memoriam tree shared human memories of sunlight. Even the skeptics seemed shaken by the directness of the experience. This is just the beginning, Alex said as the demonstrations concluded. Imagine hospitals where healing plants from different worlds work together. Educational systems where students can literally feel what other species experience. Communication networks that transcend not just language, but the very concept of separateness. Impossible, someone shouted from Section 7. Marcus Chen was on his feet, face flushed with anger. This is propaganda, dressed up as science. You're asking us to contaminate our very souls. We're asking you to evolve, Seraphine replied calmly, as every species must, or face extinction. Easy words from an immortal parasite. The auditorium tensed. Security moved closer to Section 7, but Chen wasn't finished. You've seduced him with your alien wiles, fed on his life force, corrupted his humanity, and now you want to spread your contamination to our children, to our future? The only contamination here, Alex said, his voice cutting through the growing murmur, is the poison of your fear. Seraphine has taken nothing from me that wasn't freely given. And what she's given in return, knowledge, perspective, love, has made me more human, not less. Love? Chen laughed bitterly. You call this abomination love? Yes, Alex and Seraphine said in unison, and something in their combined voice silenced the room. They stood together, hands clasped, and let their connection show. Not the dramatic display from the council hearing, but something quieter, deeper. The gentle glow of energy cycling between them, the way they moved in subtle synchronization, the peace that radiated from their partnership. This is love, Alex continued. Not despite our differences, but because of how those differences complete each other. Not contamination, but synthesis. Not loss, but exponential gain. And we're not alone, Seraphine added. On cue, other couples began standing throughout the auditorium. Human-Zephyrian pairs, Thraxian-human partnerships. Even a few combinations Alex had never seen before. They stood in silent testimony to the reality of interspecies love. "You're a minority," Chen shouted, but his voice had lost some of its conviction. "Today, perhaps," one of the standing couples, a human man with a Cetian partner, called out, "But minorities have a way of becoming majorities when they're on the right side of history." "We're not asking anyone to follow our path," Alex said, addressing the broader audience again. "We're simply showing that the path exists, that it leads to wonders you can't imagine until you experience them. The choice to walk, it remains yours. But choose based on knowledge, not fear," Seraphine urged. "Choose based on what you've seen today, not on stories told by those who profit from division." The presentation continued with testimonials from other couples, each sharing their experiences of cross-species partnership. Some spoke of challenges overcome, others of unexpected joys discovered. A human Andromedan couple demonstrated how their combined perspectives had led to breakthrough medical treatments. A Zephyrian Nocturan pair showed art that could only be created through their merged sensory experiences. Through it all, the Crimson Guard seethed but remained contained. The rest of the audience seemed to lean forward, hungry for understanding, for proof that the future didn't have to be segregated by species. As the formal presentation concluded, Alex felt a wave of exhaustion mixed with elation. They'd done it, presented their case without major incident, shown the station what was possible when fear gave way to curiosity. "Before we open for questions," he said, "I want to share one final thought. 6 weeks ago, I was lonely, disconnected, going through the motions of a life that felt increasingly meaningless. Today, I stand here with purpose, with a partner who challenges and compliments me, with a future bright with possibility. That transformation didn't happen despite our species' difference. It happened because two lonely souls recognized each other across an impossible divide and chose connection over isolation. The universe is vast and full of wonders," Seraphine added. "Why would we limit ourselves to experiencing only a fraction of it? Why would we choose walls when we could choose bridges?" The applause started slowly, building to thunderous approval from most of the auditorium. Even some who'd seemed skeptical were clapping, if thoughtfully. Section 7 remained silently hostile, but they were clearly outnumbered. The question period was intense but mostly positive. Scientists wanted technical details about the hybrid plants. Philosophers debated the implications of shared consciousness. Practical minds asked about applications in agriculture, medicine, communication. Alex and Seraphine answered as best they could, always returning to their central theme: cooperation over competition, synthesis over segregation, love over fear. It was during the final question that everything went wrong. A figure in the back stood, not from Section 7, but from the general audience. "I have a question about sustainability," they said, voice distorted by a heavy environmental suit. Too late. Alex noticed security's sudden alertness, saw Mira's face go pale with recognition. "Specifically," the figure continued, raising something that looked like a modified agricultural sprayer, "how sustainable is your abomination when exposed to this?" They fired before security could react. A cloud of something purple and acrid filled the air, spreading with unnatural speed. Alex heard screaming, saw beings scrambling for exits, felt Seraphine pulling him back. But the substance wasn't targeting people. It was going for the plants. Every hybrid specimen on stage began writhing, leaves blackening, flowers dissolving. Whatever the purple gas was, it was designed specifically to destroy the botanical bridges they'd created. "No!" Seraphine broke from Alex, rushing to shield the nearest plant with her body. The gas hit her instead, and she cried out, not in pain, but in anguish as she felt the plant dying despite her protection. Security finally reached the attacker, but the damage was done. The hybrid plants were dying. Their unique biology turned against them. The auditorium was in chaos. Beings fleeing what they feared was a broader attack. Seraphine! Alex reached her as she collapsed beside the withered remains of their whisper vine. The purple gas had dissipated, but its effects were devastating. "They're dying," she whispered, tears streaming down her face. "I can feel them all dying. Our beautiful bridges." "We'll grow more," he promised, holding her close. "We'll start over." "You don't understand." She looked up at him with ancient grief. "That gas, it's a Nocturan weapon, forbidden for centuries. Only my people would know how to make it." The implication hit Alex like a physical blow. The attack hadn't come from human supremacists. It had come from Nocturans who saw their partnership as betrayal of their own species. Around them, security was establishing order, medical teams checking for injuries, but Alex barely noticed. He held Seraphine as she mourned not just the death of their plants, but the betrayal they represented. "Both sides," she whispered. "Both sides would rather see beauty destroyed than boundaries crossed." "Not both sides," Alex said firmly. "Not everyone. You saw the audience. Most were with us. This is the desperate act of extremists who know they're losing. But they're winning. Our work is destroyed. Our first attempt is destroyed. We'll make another, and another, as many as it takes." She looked at him, searching his face. "You still have hope? After this?" "I have you," he said simply. "That's enough hope to rebuild a universe, despite everything." She smiled. Around them, the chaos was settling. Alex could see Mira organizing something with the remaining audience members. Dr. Voss carefully collecting samples of the destroyed plants. Other mixed couples comforting each other. "Stand up," he told Seraphine gently. "Let them see we're not broken." They rose together, surveying the devastation. The stage was littered with dead plants, their hybrid beauty reduced to black sludge. But they stood hand in hand, unbroken if not undamaged. "2 attacks," someone called out. It was the human Setian couple from earlier. "One from humans, one from Nocturans, both trying to stop what you represent. Doesn't that tell you something?" "It tells us we're on the right path," Seraphine answered, her voice growing stronger. "Change is always met with violence from those who fear it. But violence is temporary. Growth is inevitable." "We'll rebuild," Alex added, "with better security, better preparation. What they destroyed today were just plants. What they failed to destroy, the connections formed, the minds opened, the possibilities glimpsed, those remain. And multiply," another voice added. It was Director Martinez, the human counselor who'd voted against them weeks ago. He looked older, wearier, but also somehow more resolved. "I was wrong before. What I saw today. Before the attack, that's the future. Messy, complicated, sometimes dangerous, but ultimately beautiful. You have the Council's full support in rebuilding." Others voiced agreement. Scientists offered resources. Couples pledged assistance. Even some who'd been skeptical promised to keep open minds. The attack, meant to end their movement, had instead crystallized support. "Thank you," Alex said, meaning it deeply. "All of you. We'll need every bit of help to—" He was interrupted by a commotion at the main entrance. Security was escorting someone in, a Nocturan Alex didn't recognize. Elderly even by their standards, wearing the formal robes of the old houses. "I need to speak," the elder said, voice carrying despite its frailty. "About the weapon used here? About the shame of my people?" Seraphine stiffened. "Elder Corvus?" "Hello, child. I'm sorry I'm late. I came as soon as I heard what certain misguided individuals planned." He surveyed the destroyed plants with obvious sorrow. "The bloom killer. I thought we'd left such horrors in our past." "You know what was used?" Alex asked. I helped develop it. Centuries ago, during our civil wars. It targets the specific resonances of nocturan flora. That it worked on your hybrids means they were truly integrated with our botanical heritage. He looked at Seraphine with something like pride. You achieved something we thought impossible. And someone wanted it destroyed badly enough to use a war crime, Seraphine said bitterly. Someone who will be found and punished, Elder Corvus assured her. The Nocturan Council is horrified by this attack. We've been resistant to change. It's true. But this goes against everything we claim to value. He turned to address the remaining audience. I am here to publicly support Lady Seraphine and her human partner. What they've created challenges us, forces us to evolve beyond comfortable isolation. That's frightening. But the alternative, the path of violence and destruction we saw today, that's not Nocturan. That's not any species at its best. Pretty words, someone called out, one of the few Crimson Guard members who hadn't fled. But both your species showed their true colors today. Violence and division. No. Mira stepped forward, data pad in hand. What we saw was extremism from tiny minorities. Want to know the real numbers? 73% of the audience stayed after the attack to offer support. 91% of post-event surveys indicate increased openness to interspecies partnerships. The Botanical Communication Network had over 10,000 pre-orders before someone destroyed the prototypes. The extremists are loud, she continued, but they're outnumbered. What Alex and Seraphine have started, it's not going away because of 2 attacks. It's growing stronger. Growing like weeds, the Crimson Guard member sneered. Like flowers, Alex corrected. Growing like flowers in impossible soil, reaching across every barrier you try to build. And if you burn this garden, we'll plant another. If you destroy that, we'll plant 10 more, because life wants to grow, to connect, to become more than it was. And in the end, life always wins. The symposium officially ended in chaos. But what emerged from that chaos was more powerful than any planned conclusion could have been. The image that spread across the station's networks wasn't of destroyed plants, but of Alex and Seraphine standing together amidst the wreckage. Unbroken. Of beings from different species offering support. Of Elder Corvus publicly blessing their union. That night, back in the conservatory, they sat among their surviving plants, the ones too large or too integrated to move for the symposium. The garden felt emptier without the hybrids, but not defeated. We did it, Alex said quietly. Not the way we planned, but we changed minds today. And made enemies, Seraphine reminded him. Nocturan extremists as well as human ones now. Then we'll face them together, like we always have. It's going to get harder before it gets easier. I know. We might fail. We might. But we might also succeed beyond our wildest dreams. She leaned against him, cool and solid and present. When did you become the optimistic one? When you showed me that impossible things could grow in the right conditions. They sat in comfortable silence, planning their next steps. New security measures. Certainly. Collaboration with other couples to distribute the risk. Working with Elder Corvus to understand Nocturan resistance. Building coalition with progressive elements of all species. There's something else, Seraphine said eventually. Something I've been thinking about since the attack. The Bloom Killer worked on our hybrids because they were truly integrated. Human and Nocturan at the cellular level. That's never been achieved before. So, if it's possible with plants... She turned to face him fully. Alex, what we have, this bond between us, it's deeper than either of us expected. The energy exchange, the emotional resonance, even the way our sleep cycles have synchronized. We're becoming something new, just like the plants. Are you saying we're turning into a hybrid species? I'm saying the boundaries between us are dissolving in ways that go beyond metaphor. When I saved you from the Crimson Guard, I moved faster than any Nocturan ever has. When you touched the phase bloom, you understood dimensional mathematics that should be incomprehensible to human minds. We're changing each other. We're changing together. Becoming something that's neither fully human nor fully Nocturan, but something new. She paused, choosing her words carefully. If we continue on this path, if we deepen our bond further, we might become the first true hybrid beings, not just partners, but a new form of life. Alex absorbed this, feeling the truth of it in his cells. He was different than he'd been 6 weeks ago, and not just emotionally. Colors seemed richer. Sounds had new layers, and sometimes he swore he could photosynthesize happiness from artificial sunlight. Is that what you want? He asked. To become something unprecedented? I want to become whatever we're meant to be together. But you need to understand, this isn't a path we can walk back from. Once we cross certain thresholds, we'll be changed permanently. Like the plants. Like the plants, she agreed. Beautiful, impossible, and unable to exist in purely human or Nocturan spaces. We'd be creating our own category. It should have been terrifying. The logical part of Alex's mind catalogued all the risks: social isolation, biological uncertainty, the possibility of becoming something monstrous rather than miraculous. But stronger than fear was the pull he felt toward her, toward the potential they represented. Yes, he said simply. Yes. Yes to becoming something new. Yes to dissolving boundaries. Yes to whatever impossible thing we're creating. He took her hands, feeling the familiar spark of connection. I loved you when I thought you were just an alien vampire who accepted my joke proposal. I love you now, knowing we might become something the universe has never seen. Let's stop holding back. You're certain this isn't just post-symposium adrenaline talking? I've never been more certain of anything in my life. Have you? No, she admitted. Even facing the destruction of our work, the betrayal of my own people, I've never been more certain that this is right, that we're right. Then let's become impossible together. They sealed the promise with a kiss that sparked energy through the conservatory. Around them, the remaining plants responded, reaching toward them with new growth. The garden recognized what they were choosing, celebrated it in rustling leaves and blooming flowers. When they finally separated, both were glowing with shared energy. Not the dramatic display of public demonstration, but the quiet radiance of two beings choosing transformation. So, what happens now? Alex asked, feeling giddy with possibility. Now we rebuild our botanical network, stronger and more distributed. We work with allies from all species to normalize what we represent. We face whatever attacks come with united strength. She smiled, and it was like sunrise. And we discover what we become when we stop being afraid of our own potential. I can't wait. Neither can I. They spent the rest of the night planning, practical steps mixed with wild dreams. By dawn, they had a framework for moving forward, both in their public work and their private transformation. The attacks had been meant to end them. Instead, they'd catalyzed something more powerful than their enemies could imagine, like seeds that needed fire to germinate. Alex and Seraphine had found in destruction the push they needed to truly bloom. The universe wasn't ready for what they were becoming. But then, the universe rarely was ready for evolution when it came. Change happened anyway, carried on the wings of those brave enough to become bridges between what was and what could be. In a garden between worlds, two impossible beings chose to become more impossible still. And in that choosing, they lit a path others could follow toward a future where different didn't mean dangerous, where love could bloom across any boundary, where the only limit to connection was courage. The revolution had begun, not with violence or proclamations, but with two hearts choosing synthesis over separation. It would spread like their hybrid plants, slowly at first, then with unstoppable vitality. All it had taken was a joke, a response, and the willingness to see where impossibility might lead. All it had taken was everything, and it was just the beginning.